Welcome to TWitWoW, the best wrestling podcast made for wrestling fans, by wrestling fans, on the web today. I'm John, that's my cohort and commentary Ashton, and this is our Lucha Underground review. And man, what an episode again this week. You know, I was just telling my cohort and commentary Ashton before we went on the air, whether it's a really productive episode narratively, whether it's 3 matches, 4 matches, 2 matches, a bunch of cinematics, no cinematics, the one bit of consistency Lucha Underground seems to have, no matter the presentation of the product on that particular week, is that I have fun, is that I'm able to relax my shoulders, take a nice breath, lay back in my seat, and just enjoy an hour of quality wrestling and quality storytelling. And this week was certainly not a deviation from that norm. This was exceptional. We got 4 matches tonight. I think we got just the right amount of story to really whet our appetite on that front, although I know a lot of people are insatiable and they cannot get enough. We want more clues. We want more answers. But yeah, this was just, to me, a perfect balance kind of episode of Lucha Underground tonight. Partner, what do you think about it?
Yeah, man, this was a solid episode of Lucha Underground. Fun is definitely the word that I would use to describe this. This was kind of a strange episode because normally in Lucha Underground you get some kind of big bomb dropped, and that bomb in this episode didn't happen until the very end. And the bomb that was dropped was something that we were already kind of expecting, so it wasn't really even as much of a bomb as it should have been. But as far as what we actually did get, I was entertained. And what more can you ask for from a show like this?
Certainly, even with stuff that we may have been able to telegraph. You know, that's the thing. And I do agree with certain commentators that say, you know, the best wrestling doesn't have to be unpredictable. It just has to be executed well, even if you know what the beats are going to be. And that's what I feel like is Lucha Underground's greatest strength, is its execution. And 99% of the time otherwise, they are pretty unpredictable, because I won't even dare try and call what they're going to do. But with that said, do you have any other preliminary remarks about tonight's episode before we formally get into this?
No, man, I don't think I have anything else that I want to add. I think that this was a really solid episode. I think that the matches that we got were fun and entertaining. And I think that the storyline progression that we got was stuff that we needed to have, even if it wasn't necessarily the most interesting thing possible.
Certainly, you know, it's keeping the gears turning. I mean, there are still so many episodes left in this season that it's just really getting all the parts in order and getting everything running smoothly. And I feel like this episode certainly contributed to that. But with that said, let us get right into our Lucha Underground review. And I gotta tell you, we get our recap of preceding events and events that are going to be more focused in on in tonight's episode. And then we go into our first cinematic, Sexy Star with her Gift of the Gods Championship in a contemplative state, it seems, in the locker room. But Ashton, it seems like she can't have that moment in peace because she has not 1, but 2 interruptions. I'll let you take care of that. What did you think of the cinematic?
Well, the first interruption that you speak of is Dario Cueto himself. And he basically just kind of, you know, honestly, it's kind of the intimidation game. You know, he talks about how, you know, you've got 2 choices now that you're the Gift of the Gods champion. You can either continue defending that title, or you can face Matanza, basically painting it as a lose-lose situation for her. She stands tall. She says, I'll never be afraid again, and that kind of thing. And then he informs her about her match tonight, where she would team with the Trios champions, Fenix, Aerostar, and Drago, to take on all 4 members of Worldwide Underground. And then after Cueto left, like you said, there were 2 people that showed up. The second person was Johnny Mundo, and he shows up looking for Taya. And we realize at this point, oh my God, I don't think these 2 have ever interacted before. So he introduces himself to Sexy Star, and not only does he introduce himself, but he introduces himself as the next Gift of the Gods champion.
And, I mean, obviously I want to talk about the Johnny Mundo interaction, but I don't want to jump the gun. I love the Cueto stuff. I love it because, you know, it is kind of foreshadowing. Will Sexy Star be able to hold on to that Gift of the Gods championship long enough for the ultimate David versus Goliath story. But here's really the interesting thing. We know Matanza's a monster. We know he's brutal. But honestly, I did find the Johnny Mundo interaction a bit more intriguing. And no, not just because it was Johnny Mundo, but because, first of all, I still love how he's portrayed. You know, he's confident. You look at him, he looks like a guy to me that could beat virtually anybody save for a Matanza or somebody that's just gargantuan. You know, he's confident. He's got that swagger. He shakes Sexy Star's hand. He pulls her in, and he pretty much says, I'm going to be the next Gift of the Gods champion. So I'm coming for your championship. It's going to be mine. And then I'm finally going to attain my ultimate goal, being Lucha Underground champion. But Sexy Star doesn't take that shit lying down, because as he goes to walk away, she keeps the grip. And there's even a sound effect that she's tightening it, which really lends itself, you know, we've heard before, when you're Gift of the Gods champion, you have the power of a god. Now, does that power go away as soon as you cash it in? Does it carry all the way through your championship match? Because if it does, that may kind of hint at, for anybody counting out Sexy Star against Matanza, you may have to take a second look. And that's why I like that little moment, because it's not just comedy of, oh, look at Johnny Mundo bullying his way to Sexy Star. It's, wow, Sexy Star, her and this belt coming together, it's infused her with this kind of power. Maybe she can beat Matanza. I like that. I really like that. I really enjoyed the cinematic.
Yeah, it did a lot for the story. Like I said earlier, this wasn't necessarily the most interesting cinematic in the world, but it established some things that just straight up needed to be established before we could move forward with the story, and I appreciate that.
Exactly. All about smoothing a path, brother. I completely agree with you. With that said, though, I've got nothing else I want to say about the cinematic. Do you?
All right, well then up next, we had our first match of the night, which was Siniestro de la Muerte versus Prince Puma, and sort of the first step on Prince Puma's road to redemption, where he's trying to sort of overcome the Mil Muertes-sized monkey on his back, thanks to Vampiro's words of advice. So, John, what did you think of this match?
I thoroughly enjoyed it, brother, and I gotta tell you, and now it all makes sense why he was so impressive, given something that happened later, which we'll get to. But I was very impressed with Sinestro in this match. This was the most offensive we've ever seen him in a ring. He was actually standing toe-to-toe with Puma in certain parts, got the better of Puma in certain parts. So yeah, to see Sinestro look that competent, you know, and it's rare that I'm very critical of Lucha Underground. I wish he was that credible from the get-go, especially after absorbing the two hearts of his two partners, you know, Trece and Barrio Negro. Because, yeah, he looked great here. And really fun match. And towards the end, we have Muertes and Catrina. They come out perhaps to offer a bit of a distraction, but Puma is not to be deterred. He hits the that kind of spinning pile driver on Sinestro, but then, and what I think really made you pop and made me pop, and was one of the highlights of the episode, Puma gets Sinestro in position for the flatliner, Mills finisher, and he doesn't even break eye contact with Mil Muertes. Hits it on Sinestro and gets the 3 count. So I got to ask, I mean, what did you think of this match? I know we had a little bit of post-match, but I thought I'd ask you how you felt about that as well.
Yeah, I did mention in live reactions, there were a few moments in this match that I was actually kind of concerned that Siniestro was going to beat Puma and just kind of create that uphill battle that Puma would have to dig himself out of. But I'm actually quite happy that he beat Siniestro, because that's just kind of, you know, the way that the disciples have always kind of been portrayed is really just kind of incompetent. You know, they needed Catrina's help to win the tag title, the trios titles, and then in their first title defense, they lost the titles back to Team Havoc. You know, so they've always, and even, you know, even since then, we saw Siniestro beating, or not beating, but feeding on Trece and Barrio Negro. But at the same time, in his matches since then, if he didn't have Catrina's help, he's lost. He only won one match, and it was because of Catrina. So again, incompetence. The Disciples of Death were probably the coolest gimmicked jobbers in history of Lucha Underground, and that's okay. That's okay. But now their true colors are starting to show up, and Catrina's starting to realize, you know, what function do you really serve when I need to be the one winning your matches for you?
Yeah, they seem more like an expenditure than an asset or
Exactly. They seemed like an asset at first because Katrina was able to get them gold, and then that allowed her to have a monopoly on all the gold in the temple, which had to be a vital role in her seizing control of the temple when Dario left.
right.
But
And
I mean, since then, since they lost their titles and Mill lost his, she doesn't really have any reason for the disciples to stick around. And I think Siniestro knew that, and that's why he absorbed the power of the other two. But even then, something must have gone wrong in the transfer of power because he clearly didn't absorb that much. Either that or they just sucked that much to begin with.
yeah, exactly. And this was his best effort. It's kind of like that Simpsons episode where Bart has to like pass this test or he's going to be held back, and he studies and he studies. And I think the best he did was like a D- or something, or he still got an F. And he started to cry because he's like, I really tried this time and this is the best I could do. I still failed. So Sinestro, like, he really gave his best effort. He was busting out super kicks and counters and everything, and he still lost. I mean, if that isn't evident
Well,
this is where.
and the worst part is not only was he busting out all of his best stuff, but Mill attacked Puma and caused a distraction on top of that. So not only was he on his A game against Puma, but he also had help, and he still couldn't get the job done. Now, granted, here's the thing. Prince Puma is the freaking man in Lucha Underground. So the fact that you couldn't get the job done against him really isn't as much of an indictment on Siniestro as it could have been if he would have lost to, I don't know, say like Superfly in the same manner. But it's still, with all the help you had, being on your A game, Puma kind of feeling like maybe you have his number because you're associated with Mill, and Puma still pulls the win out. Siniestro proved himself worthless in this match.
I would completely agree, and because he's worthless,
it brings up a question I wanted to ask, John. I wanted to ask you and our fans, anybody listening. We have 9 watchers right now live. What do you think is going to happen with the El Mariachi Loco character? Because he disappeared when Siniestro de la Muerte showed up. And now Siniestro de la Muerte, later on in the night, we saw he's not going to be around anymore. And we've already seen Ricky Mandel make a return, and I believe we saw Argenis either at the end of last season or earlier this season as well. So the other 2 former disciples of death returned with their original characters. Now are we going to get to see El Mariachi Loco again? And is Paul William Gregory going to get to hear that goddamn song?
First of all, I hope Paul William Gregory hears that goddamn song, because the man has suffered enough and he deserves it, okay? But more sincerely, personally, I'm going to give you the objective answer. I'm going to give you my personal fantasy booking. Objectively, it's kind of up in the air because Mariachi Loco, like, I did like him in that one match against Masquerade Sagrada. I think he may have had 1 or 2 matches outside of that. And I do like the idea of the character, but I really don't know where he fits into the whole scheme. Fantasy booking, I would totally hook him up with Famous B. I'd have Mariachi Loco be kind of the musician for the group or whatever, and Famous B showing diversity in clientele. I think, though, that would be a great pairing for me personally, but I don't know what they're going to do with the Mariachi Loco character. I do hope we see him, though, because that's the thing. Even with Lucha Underground's quote-unquote jobbers, like you just said about the Disciples of Death, they were the coolest jobbers, not just in Lucha Underground history, dare I say in wrestling history. Had a great look to them, great vibe to them, and that's just all in the writing. I think they could write Mariachi Loco very well if they wanted to fit him into the scheme. It's just a question of do they or not. So it'll be very curious to see what happens with him.
Absolutely. Okay, so now we can probably move on because up next we had a very interesting segment in Dario Cueto's office where Cortez Castro showed up. And Cueto actually hugged Castro like really tight, like he was hanging on, like he didn't want to let him go. And then he said, Cortez Castro, my man, how are you doing? And then he ended up bringing up the he was going to bring the real murderer of Mr. Cisco to justice. And he even talks about Big Rick and says about how life must go on and that kind of thing. And then he says, by the way, you have a match tonight against a mystery opponent. Get on out there, killer. Get on out there. You got this.
Yeah, this was the one segment tonight that really made me go anxious aardvark. And I was really concerned for Officer Reyes' well-being. because I didn't want him to die just yet, because I felt like we could get some quality suffering out of him, and I was proven right a few moments later. But yeah, I mean, this whole thing was racked with tension, and just the hug and how prolonged it was. And like, because here's the thing, this really was, it was like pricking me like needles. I'm thinking like, oh, is Dario gonna like snap his neck or break his back? Because you don't know really what Dario is fully capable of. I still don't think he's entirely quote unquote normal, that he may be concealing things from us. And so I'm like, you know, is Reyes in any kind of danger? I mean, let's be honest, as long as he is in that temple, he's in danger. And yeah, just really tension all throughout. But I loved it, man. I love that they're playing this kind of long con with, I know it's you, I'm not going to let you know it's you, but I'm just going to keep being a dick. And really, how is Reyes supposed to know that Cueto knows by his behavior? Because keep in mind, Cueto didn't know what Reyes was really doing, and he still had to watch his friend Bale get his face eaten off by Matanza. He knows how sadistic Cueto is, and that's the brilliance of it. It's not like this is a deviance from Cueto's normal behavior towards him, where he could go, he must know, because Cueto's just that sadistic. That's where I think this really works on just another level entirely.
Yeah, I definitely would agree with that. Yeah, I mean, Cueto is, you said sadistic, and I completely agree. That's the perfect word to describe it. But the thing is, by doing this, and I don't know if you mentioned it or not, but the mystery opponent ended up being Pentagon Dark. So obviously, Cueto, and I think Reyes has to catch on. Cueto is trying to punish him. So Reyes, you know, he's got a broken arm now, but he's got to have figured it out by now. Like, oh my God, he knows I need to get the hell out of here.
Right. And, you know, you have to wonder now, because, I mean, like you said, we might as well just merge everything together. Pentagon Dark was the opponent. It went about as well as you could expect. Pentagon Dark destroyed him, broke the arm. And now you've got to wonder if that's going to be a source of tension. Again, and probably be more legitimate than the amulet, because I know we had a spirited discussion about that between him and Vasquez. Or if not even a source of tension, like, you have to imagine, is he going to be off the case for a while? Because, you know, can you really do quality work and defend yourself and this and that with a broken arm? You know, these are questions that I think Lucha Underground's going to have to address in the next maybe 2 or some weeks when they want to return to this story. And yeah, it's just very interesting now that Officer Reyes, he has been handicapped a bit by Pentagon Dark breaking his arm, which Cueto must have loved. And by the way, just as a quick little side note, as far as the whole Reyes-Cueto interaction, the look on Cueto's face when Reyes left and Reyes couldn't see it, chills down my fucking spine. I pray nobody ever looks at me that way, because I know I'm dead. I know I'm dead. That, just great acting all around in this. I loved it. And then the match, again, just to kind of put it all together, it was a freaking squash. I mean, Reyes, yeah, he did some stuff, but it was freaking Pentagon Dark, package pile driver, and arm breaker, you know, to freaking end it. And now Reyes is going to have to deal with that whole thing, as well as Vasquez, you know, because now the one person that she really wants to trust, that she's kind of recruited in this whole thing, is not around. And just to bring up this point, Ashton, and I'll field this to you so we could get some of your thoughts that are kind of floating out there. Do you think this clears a path for Meehan to do anything now that Reyes may not be in the way? Because we know that he's on Cueto's side.
Well, I think that this kind of was Meehan's doing. He was the one that told Cueto, by the way, my partner's someone that you know as Cortez Castro. He's also a cop, and that led to this. What more can Meehan really do, you know? Like, maybe he gives Cueto some kind of inside information, but he didn't need Cortez Castro to be out of the way, in hard quotes, in order for him to do that.
Right. So,
you know what I mean? He's just, you know, sleaze is going to sleaze.
So, I mean, you don't really think the dynamic's going to change? I mean, like, what do you think the ripple effect of Reyes getting his arm broken is going to be? Because we see how people respond when they get their arm broken by Pentagon. So, I mean, what do you think is going to happen here?
The beautiful thing I think about Lucha Underground is that they aren't afraid to write smart characters. So I think that Reyes is going to find out that Cueto knows it's him, that Cueto knows he's a cop. He's going to find that out. And that revelation might even lead him to figuring out that Joey revealed to Cueto that he was a cop.
Right, right. And then, you know, I mean, those two were already contentious with each other to begin with. When that revelation...
And that might even be the new conflict. He might be just convinced, like, you sold us out. you need to be in freaking prison.
Exactly.
And then Captain Vasquez is going to be the intermediary, and she's going to be like, well, what proof do you have? How do you know it was him? How do you know Cueto didn't find out on his own? Whatever. That could be the new conflict is, Reyes trying to convince Vasquez that Meehan is a traitor.
Yeah, definitely. I love that line of thinking. I have to agree with you. And I'm just very curious what's going to happen now that Reyes has gotten his arm broken. But great stuff here. Very simple, very straightforward, and as a consequence, very effective. I love this. I love this and the subsequent match. I thought it was great.
Yeah, and like you said, Pentagon dominated. He broke the arm. And then that was pretty much it. He cut a promo talking about how he doesn't care or respect anyone, including his own mother.
That was amazing. You do you, Pentagon Dark.
Yeah, that was hilarious. But then once the match and the promo were over, we pretty much, I think we went to a commercial, and then we got right into the Atomicos match, which was the Trios champions, Fenix, Drago, and Aero and Sexy Star, the Gift of the Gods champion, versus the Worldwide Underground. All four of them, Worldwide Underground. So this was a really fun match. I feel so bad for Jack Evans because he's got his jaw wired shut in these first two matches that he was meant to be. And, the part of him that is probably, the most entertaining is when he is allowed to talk and when he's allowed to trash talk his opponents in the ring and shout at the crowd and all that stuff. And that's just amazing. But he still has this amazing athleticism that's just prodigious. It's ridiculous. Like, he's an incredible athlete, and the fact that he's able to do all this flippy shit while his jaw's wired shut. Like, he gets tagged in and immediately does like 4 back flips and then starts to lose his balance and then does like 3 front flips, and then he stands there, points at Drago, and then tags himself out.
And you know something? I got to take a moment because I know I came down hard because I did not know it was an injury. And I was just getting mad, Johnny Scumbag last week because I'm all pro Worldwide Underground and everything. But I got to give, in all sincerity, Jack Evans some credit because it's often said in this business that injuries create opportunities. But the thing about that is it's always opportunities for everybody that's healthy. Jack Evans may be one of the only few people that I know that has turned an injury, that he's dealing with into an opportunity for himself, because him having his jaw wired shut showed me just how brilliant, how versatile Jack Evans is. He can't run his mouth. That's fine because he can do body language too. His body language last week and a little bit tonight was so on point. He gets in at one point in this match and all he does is flips and like gymnastics level, kind of moves to just pop his friends Worldwide Underground, and they're like cheering on. That's what makes this team work. And Jack Evans as an entity, as just a singular performer unto himself, is just so brilliant. And to know that he's still working and still being relevant and staying in the fold, even with an injury, that's so important in this industry. That's why I'm glad on the Raw side that Seth Rollins is still being featured, because you don't want to be taken off the screen. Because with how fast things move, it's not that you're going to be forgotten
right there, you kind of talking about Jack Evans turning his own injury into an opportunity. Do you know who the only other person I've ever known that's done that was?
Who's that?
Stone Cold Steve Austin.
There you go.
Because when he had a major injury, it might have even been the neck break against Owen, I don't remember. But he had a major injury that he just straight up could not wrestle, couldn't take bumps or anything. But he refused to stop working. He kept on showing up. They kept on giving him roles. They kept on giving him promos and segments and stuff where he wouldn't even fight anyone. He would just cut a promo, or he would interact with someone backstage, or whatever it was, to keep him fresh in people's minds. And Jack Evans is following that path.
Absolutely. And what's great here, and it's a perfect marriage, right? Because obviously you never want to see anybody get hurt. But, and this is going to sound a bit morbid, what better place to get hurt than Lucha Underground, especially with the uniqueness of Jack Evans' injury where he can still appear on TV. Because what was once an injury now could be a narrative detail. And I say that because as we see this match, which was a very fun match, I mean, Trios Champions, great combination. I have been loving Aerostar, man. It's funny that from the first season, I just wanted to kind of relegate Aerostar to kind of that mid-card dustbin, like, oh, he's good for a pop, and oh, he can have fun matches, to like, I'm actually interested in his story. I still want to see him time travel. I still want to see him converse with the tribes, and in-ring, he's fun. So I got to give Aerostar credit there. I think he's actually my favorite member on that team. You know, and they just do great stuff, and it's popping, and the crowd's into it. But the finish, Sexy Star seems like she's taken on virtually every member of Worldwide Underground by herself. She gets Jack Evans in a gory special. Johnny Mundo hits a super kick, and then Jack Evans does that backslide bridging pin, still one of the most gorgeous pinning combinations I've seen, and pins Sexy Star. Now, in regular circumstances, this would most likely lead to a cinematic, Jack Evans having a chip on his shoulder. Hey, I pinned Sexy Star. I deserve a gift of the Gods Championship, which would be perfectly logical, and yes, he would. But, Ash, I think you even said this on live reactions, and we certainly talked about it after the fact, Jack Evans having his jaw wired shot could lead to a cinematic instead of, you know, Jack Evans pinned Sexy Star, but he wanted to give the title shot to me. And you know what they could do? They could even do it as something comical, because Jack can't speak. He could maybe even be doing violent body language like, no, I never said that. What are you talking about? And then Dario Cueto being a dick, just being like, okay, Johnny, you've got your match. So,
I know. Yes, I love that so much. Oh, my God.
Dude, they should totally do that, because here's the thing. I love Johnny Mundo to the day I die, but there's no denying that he's a dick, which is why I love him in the first place. And just the idea that he could reap the spoils of Jack Evans' ingenuity with that pinning combination, even though, I mean, the super kick that preceded it did all the work anyway, would just be great, because now you've got Taya, who's still shoveling his shit but hasn't cracked, and then Jack Evans could just go out somewhere and just be like, I never said that, man. I deserve that match, and then, aw. So, yeah, great possibilities here, all stemming from Jack Evans having his jaw wired shut. This man is even a gift to humanity when he can't speak. What a godsend Jack Evans is. How wonderful. Anything else you want to...
It's great.
Anything else you want to say about this match, man?
I don't think so. I think this was just a really, really fun match. I loved, like you said, the Jack Evans random athletics and then tagging out. I loved how consistent Worldwide Underground was with the frequent tags, man. These three, I don't care, any three of the four. We could even do Freebirds where any of the three can defend them. They need the titles back. They need to be trios champions again.
I want Taya, PJ, and Jack to be that trio, mainly because it's time Taya got some gold. You know, I really want her to win a championship this season. And
so much.
Yeah, I mean, and knowing how Jack Evans, wait, what was that, partner?
No, I was just saying Taya deserves gold so much.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, it's funny because I know Caltag Star has always been like a huge Jack Evans fan, and it's not that I disagree with him. I've always been a fan of Jack Evans, but I think just these past two matches, knowing he's working hurt, has shown me Jack Evans isn't just a great aerialist or athlete. He's just a great all-around performer, period.
Yeah. Yep.
And that's amazing to me. So kudos to Jack Evans.
I love Axel Diaz in chat. Jack Evans' injury is Seth Rollins' fault. He's dangerous.
Bret Hart, 2016. Yeah, man, I'm good on this match, though. I've said everything that needs to be said. I especially wanted to heap a lot of praise on Jack Evans, and I've done that as well. So unless there's anything you want to say, we can move on.
Can I also point out that I do appreciate that Jack Evans is violating people regardless of gender?
Oh, yes. Oh, man, the finger poke of doom, right in the bone.
The finger poke of doom. Oh, my God, that's too good.
Oh, man.
Different kind of doom, though. Different kind of doom.
Oh, certainly. Absolutely.
All right, so let's see. Up next, we had a just amazing segment. And by the way, it's worth mentioning Taya had a leg injury and got
which I hope is a work. I tweeted her after that segment because I know they were taping in advance. And I'm like, oh, were you okay after that? I was really worried. She has yet to respond. I hope she does respond to me, though, because again, with my stress disorder, I'm probably going to think, oh, my God, she's been hiding this from all of us, and it's awful. But I'm just going to take a deep breath. I'm sure she's fine. So, yeah, hopefully she is okay, though, because it did look pretty nasty.
Hashtag pray for Taya.
Yes, do it. You're not praying hard enough. Work harder. Sorry.
Oh, John, our mistake was thinking that prayer would work in the first place.
I know, right? But that's getting into some waters that I really don't care for swimming in. So let's move on to this Catrina segment that you were touching on.
Katrina! Oh, yes! We see Mil Muertes at his sort of shrine / throne, whatever you want to call it. And he's standing there, and you see Siniestro de la Muerte behind him, and then Catrina comes up behind Siniestro and snaps his freaking neck, and then sucks out his life force and blows it towards Mil, and then does lick a death on Siniestro. So, safe to say, Siniestro de la Muerte is no more.
And you know what I like about this, Ashton, besides, well, everything? It really does come kind of full circle because I'm assuming the Disciples of Death, I mean, obviously we know who the vessels were, Ricky Mandel, Aerostar, and Mariachi Loco, but you'd have to think that they were kind of made or forged from the power of Mil Muertes or whatever gives Mil his power in the first place, and now Mil has all of that power. It's all been returned to him. So we've got literally, in my mind, a full circle resolution here. And what I love about it is they make an example out of Sinestro, the grunt of the group. And then Catrina just looks at Mil and says, I want you to do the same thing to Prince Puma. And then Mil's eyes just flare up with that red color, which is probably murder mode activated. And then everybody clears the fucking room who has any desire to live. So, yeah, still not fucking with these people 3 seasons later. And I'm a scumbag that'll screw with anybody, but not those two. Not those two and not Matanza. Fuck that. So, yeah, great cinematic. I loved it.
Yeah, man, this was great. I love, and I said this in live reactions, I love the campy effects that they use in Lucha Underground because it looks cool and it looks badass, but it's also hilarious at the same time. I love it, man. It's great.
Yeah, absolutely, bro. Absolutely. It's so good. And I just think it's something, like I've said in the past, Lucha Underground has a little something for everybody. And if you're a fan of like those old monster movies or even like the more contemporary stuff, like Mil just has that vibe, and especially Catrina. And you really see the hierarchy to me of death here because again, Sinestro got taken out and Mil is so impulsive. And we've seen that multiple times throughout the 3 seasons, but Catrina's always relaxed. She broke up the brawl again tonight between Puma and Mil. She's calculating, she's shrewd. That's why she's really the leader. Mil is just a very impressive and imposing puppet. And
dude, that's what over 200 years of life on this earth will do to a person. You'll like the one thing that I have noticed, and we could easily make this an old person joke, but I won't go there. But the one thing that I have noticed is that the older you get, the more patient you grow. In general, obviously there are going to be exceptions to every rule, but in general, I've noticed that young people are always very impatient, very, gimme, now, instant gratification. But as you grow older and as you learn just how long life is and how, good things come to those who wait, and etc., your patience gets bigger and you get to the point where you're willing to wait more. And that's, Catrina, even though she looks like a hot young 20-something year old, she's 200 plus years old, and we know that from last season. And the fact that she's been around for that long, she's probably willing to wait long enough that by the time she's actually ready to strike, Mil might be dead by then. You don't know. And I mean dead, like gone away, buried, no longer able to be revived dead, too.
Yeah, that remains to be seen. I just love the whole contrast between Mil and Catrina because, again, when he has his angry outbursts and stuff, it almost seems infantile in a way. And I use that language because let's remember, Catrina came upon Mil when he was a young boy, Pascual Mendoza. Yeah. And it's funny that those childish characteristics still seem to be exhibited in Mil Muertes. Now, he could just also be a man rather than using all this, Freudian kind of language. Oh, infantile and childish. He could just be a person with an anger issue. That's also very likely. It's just, I find it very interesting. The contrast between this woman who, like you said, because she's so old, the patience grow. And if you don't learn a freaking thing after 200 years on this planet, you're a lost cause. Okay. And Catrina's learned a hell of a lot. To Mil, who you'd think with death wouldn't be so impulsive. You know, he'd share those characteristics with Catrina, but no, he's like, I want Puma. And it's always Catrina that has to talk him down the ledge of his own emotions. The same way when he throttled her by the throat in season 1 because of the whole Fenix thing. She never even flinched because she could see
I need nothing.
Exactly. Whereas Catrina has always been, I don't want to say the parent, because that would frame their relationship, I think, in an incorrect way. But again, she's the puppeteer here.
The mentor.
The mentor, the puppeteer, you know, things like that. She's in that leadership and commanding role. And that's why.
Let's put it in the most simple way possible, John. She's the brain, he's the brawn.
Exactly. I mean, hell, just to show you the dependence that Mil has on Catrina, even outside of these relations, keep in mind with the whole Cuerno feud, if Catrina didn't show up with the stone, Mil would have been in that glass case, presumably for the rest of his natural lifespan, however long that is. So, you know, there is definitely a link of dependency there. And I just wonder what other nuances the relationship has. And that may be something that's touched on this season. And I would certainly would love to watch that.
Yeah, absolutely. I love your observation there, though, too, that like the idea that Mil really is just really like childish. And I feel like I've brought this up about people before, but I feel also like I have to bring it up again. Mil Muertes is pure id. What he wants, he doesn't want to wait for it. He wants it now. And the things that he wants are driven by sort of the Freudian theory of, you know, motivation. It's always, his whole thing was people are always motivated by sex and violence. Well, I don't know about Mil Muertes' sex drive, but he is constantly motivated by violence.
Yeah, and it's funny because Mil was brought in by a man who's also driven by violence in Dario Cueto to take care of Blue Demon Jr. So it's funny how that camaraderie and violence, really got Mil here, and he's just had a foothold in the temple ever since. And I ain't going to tell him he can't. So there you go.
All right. So up next, we had our main event of the evening. Dragon Azteca Jr. versus Chavo Guerrero Jr. and with Rey Mysterio Jr. as the special guest referee. So I got to tell you, John, this match did feel a little bit disjointed to me. I kind of wish that it would have gone on a little bit longer. But that being said, it told a story, again, like I said, to open the show up. This match told a story that needed to be told. Whether it was the best or most interesting story possible, no. But it was something that needed to be done to progress with whatever else Lucha Underground is looking to do.
I mean, yeah, I agree with all of your points. If I had a nitpick of my own, and this is just me being honest, because think about it. In the preceding week, we ended with a cinematic of Rey meeting up with Dario, telling him, like, what's going on with El Dragon Azteca. He finds out about what El Dragon Azteca Jr. has been asking for, demanding, and Rey is adamant, change it. But when you look at his officiating, even with the breakdown that happened later in the match, which I'll touch on in just a second, we never really saw Rey hesitate. We never really saw him express the gravity before him. Like even, and I know this is like a horrible example to use, but that's precisely why I'm using it, because this is a bad circumstance, and I think things were still able. John Cena as special guest referee for the Wade Barrett-Randy Orton matchup. You could see at times, even with how horrible they handled that whole thing, that he felt the weight of like every count. Like, oh man, if that would have been 3, my career would have been over. Or if it would have been this, then a guy who doesn't deserve the title would have won it. I never felt like Rey. He was wearing the suit, he was wearing the pants, but he never felt the gravity of why he was wearing them to begin with, in my mind. Because you go from adamantly telling Cueto, you need to change that. I don't want anywhere near Pentagon. And then you have the power to make that happen. And he readily makes the count, all because of a provocation by Chavo when he punched Rey and all that stuff. And then Rey retaliates. And that's fair enough, right? But I think, again, even after the count, Rey could have registered, oh my God, what have I done? Heat of the moment, I got angry at Chavo, I made a count, and now I just put somebody that I've been kind of safeguarding, who's very special to me because of the connection we all share with the original Dragon Azteca. I've put him in the lion's den with Pentagon Dark. I never felt like Rey exhibited the gravity of why he was there, and that's really my biggest nitpick. I think all of yours have merit too, don't get me wrong, but that's something I really wanted to point out, because Lucha Underground consistently gets right the narrative, And I feel like this wasn't as impactful as it could have been for me. Still excited for the match, though.
Yeah. All right. So yeah. I mean, as far as Ray goes, I agree with you 100%. I feel like I don't know, his reactions to pinfalls were either way too subtle for me to catch on to or just non-existent. Like he wasn't doing anything. And I feel like that could have added another layer to the match and it could have made it more interesting. So great pickup there. I agree with you 100%.
Absolutely. Thank you, partner. I agree with you as well. Glad to see we mutually agree. Azteca Jr. does win, so we know he is going to get a future match with Pentagon Dark, which I will say this, if Ray didn't carry his weight on how, great this match may be or how intriguing this match may be, the closing cinematic did. And partner, I'm going to leave this all to you. So what did you think about how we ended the show?
Black Lotus, baby. She talks about, and here's the thing. I'm reading a recap right now just to make sure that I'm going over everything in order. And in the recap, it says that Black Lotus complained about Pentagon Dark. But I don't think that that's, unless we misheard or just we didn't hear because we were busy live reacting. I didn't hear her actually state a name. And if I had to guess, I would say she was actually complaining about El Dragon Azteca Sr., who she says she took care of, and then obviously Junior, who she never got the chance to take care of because of Pentagon Dark. Now, like I said, I could be way off here. I could be wrong. I'm probably, there's a good chance that we were not able to hear what was said, and that this is exactly what was said, and she actually did specifically say Pentagon Dark. If so, I'm sure someone in chat will correct us. But either way, the key is Black Lotus Triad is happening. She's assembled the Triad, and now it's her and these 3 members of the Triad, and they are going to try and seek revenge on either El Dragon Azteca Jr. or Pentagon Dark or both.
And partner, let me just ask you, and kind of get you discussing things a little bit. Do you think when El Dragon Azteca Jr. and Pentagon Dark share the ring, that's when they're going to strike and there's not going to be a definitive conclusion? Or do you think we are going to have a winner and maybe she'll wait in like a separate cinematic to make her move? How do you think all that's going to unfold?
Dude, if they strike that early in the season, I would be freaking ecstatic. That would be incredible.
I just can't wait for it, because I will say, even though we knew it was coming from the trailer, actually seeing it and knowing like, oh shit, this is happening, it still had that gravity to it to me. Like, she is bringing a force to the temple. And how is Dario going to react to this? Because here's the thing. As legitimate as the freaking Triad, the Black Lotus Triad, stop at that one target. Like, they may look around, they may be like, wow, this temple, it's really freaking cool. I think we're just going to crash here for a while. This may be a bigger headache for Dario down the road. I wouldn't be so reductionist as to think this is going to be purely contained within the Azteca Jr. Pentagon Dark story. It may very well be, and that would be fine. But I could see this Triad posing much broader threats down the road. I can't wait, dude. It is coming. It's going to be amazing.
Man, this is probably what or at least one of the things that I was most excited for watching the trailer. This has got me so hype. I can't wait to see them. Assuming it is who I think it is, that's just got me so excited. And yeah, that's going to be awesome. But John, without spoiling anything or anything, we should probably close out the review portion here and move on.
Absolutely, partner. I agree with you. So let's move on to high spots and low shots. And I, with a big smile on my face, give my low shot to Cortez Castro, a.k.a. Officer Reyes, because you were stupid enough to try. You got what you deserved. Learn next time, ass face, and enjoy being the low shot. Who's your low shot?
Wow.
Don't you love how merciless I am to somebody's life being ruined? It's great.
I'm going to tweet something to Ricky Reyes and tell him that you said that about him.
You do that, and then when he comes looking for me, he'll find nothing but laughing emoticons in his damn face and his broken arm. How's that cast, asshole? So there you go.
Oh my God. Well, my low shot was penetrated in the asshole tonight by Jack Evans' fingers. and also got pinned clean in the middle of the ring despite holding a championship. That's Sexy Star, you know? She not only did she get, like I said, she got what's the word? Violated by Jack Evans, but she also lost. She was pinned. She was the weak point of her team. And to top it all off, she was formally introduced to the man that is going to take the Gift of the Gods championship away from her.
Yes,
So,
and I'm
horrible night for Sexy Star.
And I'm glad you brought that up because I was even going to tack onto your low shot when you're confronted by two people, one about the prospect of Matanza and the other one being a guy in Johnny Mundo gunning for your championship, and the latter proving that he can carry out on that threat. That's also a psychological detriment. So in every facet, I think Sexy Star had a rough night. She still has the Gift of God's championship, but after a performance like that, the question is for how much longer? And yeah. I love what they're doing with the reign, dude. I think it's great.
And it's like Cueto said at the beginning of the night, you're either going to have to defend that thing or you're going to have to cash it in. And if you cash it in, you get to face my brother. So it's lose-lose for her. She's in a horrible – she really is between a rock and a hard place.
Exactly. And I think –
and I'm sure she's feeling some butt pain as well, thanks to Jack Evans.
Certainly so, certainly so. What's so great about the Sexy Star character is that narratively – I don't want to say that it's implausible because I think Lucha Underground can make most things plausible, but I don't think you could really depend on an external force, say, for example, Dario's Dial of Doom, to take care of Sexy's problem. It is going to be something that she's going to have to confront on her own because that's what her entire character is predicated on, facing up to these challenges. So you know Sexy Star is going to face Matanza. It's inevitable to me. The question is Johnny Mundo just going to be that roadblock? I hope he is, but this is the objective portion of the review. I'll geek out later. So, yeah, I definitely agree with Sexy Star being your low shot. Conversely, my high spot, Pentagon Dark. Because, one, you broke an arm in Ricky Reyes. Two, you got to talk trash to Vampiro, so you know, like, you're still showing him, like, hey, you're still on my radar. You're still my little bitch bag after what I did to you at Ultimate Luchados. And three, and I said this throughout live reactions, and I'm going to repeat it here. When your profile is so high in the temple, and you're so legit in that temple, that you're the quote-unquote prize in a match between two guys like El Dragon Azteca Jr. and Chavo Guerrero because they both want revenge on you, you fucking arrived, okay? Like, that's it. So, yeah, he's my high spot because he might be one of the most prestigious entities alongside the freaking championship itself. And Pentagon Dark, it's a good time to be him right now. So he's my high spot.
Yeah, man, I won't, I sign right on to your high spot. Makes all the sense in the world. My high spot, just because I don't really feel super comfortable giving it to anyone else that was in any matches tonight or anything like that. I'm going to keep it nice and simple, and my high spot is going to go to Mil Muertes, because Mil Muertes was gifted an extra soul tonight, and Catrina told him to chill, which means she has a plan. Mil's got it made, brother.
I'll be honest, bro. I love your pick, and you're certainly right in making it. But I have to say, our ESPN was a bit off on my end because I didn't pick this guy because I thought you were going to. So I guess I'd make him an honorary high spot. Prince Puma. I thought you were going to go Puma.
Why I didn't pick Puma?
Why didn't you pick Puma?
For the exact reason that I'm picking Mil, because Catrina has a plan. There's a reason she keeps backing Mil off of Puma. And Siniestro de la Muerte, who was nothing more than an incompetent distraction, is now out of the picture. If I'm Puma, I don't want to have a false sense of comfort, and because that's what it would be. It would be false. It would be, a really disingenuous sense of comfort. It would be a sense of comfort that would lead to you getting killed, because Mil has got something coming. This is the calm before the storm. You beat the flack. The flacky, the
lackey.
The lackey, thank you. You beat the lackey, but the big boss just got stronger. So really, long-term, Puma lost tonight.
Yeah, you know what? That's brilliant, dude. I won't question your judgment after that because I really did want to give you. I didn't want to be that dick this week and then have you be like, oh, you took mine. Turns out I wasn't even close. But yeah, I love your justification for all that. Makes perfect sense. With that said, partner, do you have any concluding remarks about tonight's episode of Lucha Underground?
No, sir.
All right, then, guys. With that said, this has been Lucha Underground. This has been TWitWoW, the best wrestling podcast made for wrestling fans, by wrestling fans, on the web today. I'm John. That's my co-host and commentary Ashton. Guys, be sure to comment, subscribe, and like the video. Please, before you leave, give the video a like. The more likes the video gets, the more likely it is to be the top search result for Lucha Underground reviews on YouTube. And we're the best, so the top is the only place we belong. Fuck that algorithm. And you guys already know all the stuff to check out because of the glorious backgrounds my cohort and commentary here makes. What you may not know, and you got I think 2 days left here because Fridays are Q&A. Very small window left here. If you haven't yet, please submit questions for our third Q&A. We've already exceeded Q&A number 2. I'm loving how with each successive Q&A, more questions come in. It's definitely a proven commodity.
We're going to hit a wall, brother. We are going to hit a point where we get a number of questions on a Q&A that's less than the one before.
Oh, I'm fully anticipating it. But to know that we could have a very high saturation point before that happens is just kind of astounding to me. So guys, if you don't know how it works already, you guys all know the forums you could reach us at. Our Facebook page, like the Facebook page, leave a message there. Our Twitters, which again, you can see on the Facebook, the Reddit, anything, YouTube comment on this video, when it's formally processed and put up and you want to leave a formal comment. 5 questions per Q&A. They could be all to me, all to Ashton, or all to both of us, which, by the way, I just want to put this out there for me because sometimes I get confused. If you could specify if it's for both or if it's for one or the other, I'd appreciate it because sometimes Ashton asks me, is that for you or for both of us? And sometimes I can't tell because there's really no differentiating language. So in the future, if you can make sure, that'd be great. But any topic, guys, 5 questions, could be pro wrestling, could be music, movies, personal life, within reason, anything you want to ask, it's on the table. So yeah, that's Q&A. And partner, we do an NXT review tonight or tomorrow?
Yes, we are.
Okay, we will see you later on in the night for our NXT review. And I heard apparently that my favorite Ember Moon's going to be on the show. So yes. And until then, guys, tune in and peace out.